Talk Shoes.
Recorded live.
Good day, everyone. I hope you're all well. My name is Barbara Sadler, and I'm the creator of the Mayan Cross website and the hostess for today's TeleWebcast. Today is Saturday, April 27th on the Gregorian calendar, and one deer on the Mayan sacred calendar, which is also known as the Cholki calendar. And for those of you that are somewhat new to our work here, we're using the English language and also the Quiche language, mainly because the Mayan Cross is used mostly in the highlands of Guatemala, which is where they use Quiche. So today is one deer, which in Quiche would be Hun Keh, and that Keh is spelled K-E-J. And this is our fourth out of a total of 20 episodes that we'll be having every 13 days until November 21st, when this 260-day cycle of the Cholki calendar ends. And a new one begins, of course, on November 22nd. The vision for these calls is for a platform that can carry forward what we understand about Mayan wisdom using the oral tradition, as this is how it's been done for millennia with the Maya. They kept the calendars alive by using them in ritual around the sacred fire. So in our keeping with that tradition, hopefully you have your candle or your altar or your bundle or your staff near you at this time. And we have people from all over the world joining us now in this moment, and many more will be tuning into the calls because they're all recorded. And there'll be people listening in on this for the next 13 days. So it's really important for us to keep our lines clear and clean. And if you're not speaking, please press the mute button on your phone. If you don't have a mute button, you can just press *6. And this cuts out any possible background noise, like dogs barking or water running or neighbors ringing your doorbell, etc. And then if you wish to speak, please press *6 again to unmute yourself. So also, I'd like to mention that if you have a question or a comment that is a bit off topic from the context of our discussion, I'd like to welcome you to email me directly at mayancross@gmail.com. We're really trying to address as many of these items that come up, and I welcome, a lot of people do this anyway, so I really, that's part of my role here is to respond in a timely manner with at least my understanding of your question. And on the technical side, we have Jeff Grant, typically with us, but I don't see him here yet this morning. So I'm going to stay tuned to see if he's going to be able to join us. And I would like to mention that Jeff has been creating YouTubes of the recorded calls. So he's been adding a visual component to the voice mechanism that we use, and it really livens things up. So if you get a chance, you can just Google the Mayan Cross YouTube channel and go out there and see the different ones that have been created so far, and see what you think. And also feel free to share and comment and see all of these things. Before we get started with one deer energy, I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to see if anybody in the group here has anything they would like to contribute in terms of what they noticed over the last 13 days when the cycle was under the influence of jaguar, or Ish in the Quiche language. So does anybody want to make a comment on what they noticed about personal events, current events, global events, and how that may relate to the Jaguar energy? The lines are open, so if anybody would like to speak, by all means do so. Anybody like to chat anything in? By all means, do that too. Remember, there's no such thing as a wrong answer here, so don't be shy.
Barbara, I noticed an awful lot happened. Yeah, this is Joseph. Noticed an awful lot happened that first week of that Trecena, from the terror attack in Boston to earthquake, floods. Seemed like an awful lot of activity. I don't know if that relates to Jaguar energy or if it was just coincidental. The fertilizer plant that blew up. I mean, it's just so much happened in a span of 1 week. I wouldn't say they were all resolved by any means, but I was surprised with that fertilizer explosion, how few people died. It took out like 4 blocks and only, not that just 10 or 12 lives is a small number. Each one is important, but it just seemed like an awful lot of activity happened.
Yeah. Well, in terms of whether or not that was coincidence, I learned during that time period that there was an abnormal amount of solar flare activity that would impact what happens on our dear planet Earth. And because Jaguar is that Earth energy, I think that's the correlation that I drew between, the Jaguar energy that was present and what else was going on in the world. Guest 7 says something. I found a lot of change in the body with your own nervous system, right? And I know I personally had just kind of a wild time on Thursday. That would be a week ago Thursday, which was the day of my Mayan day sign, which is Flint or Tihash. I was meditating first thing in the morning, as I usually do, and I thought everything was just, really powerful. And it was a 5-day, and the 5 energy is that energy of empowerment. So I was just really curious how this power day for me was going to play out with, with everything else. And it was about a half an hour after my meditation finished that the power in my home went out. The power in the whole area around where I live was gone. So I was kind of chuckling, okay, here's a power day for me on the Mayan calendar, and my power is out. And as it turned out, it was raining. It was flooding all over the place, the worst rain we've had in umpteen years. And I took a walk around the neighborhood to see what was going on, talking to my neighbors, and everybody was bringing out their generators. Well, I didn't own a generator, and the alternate battery for my sump pump was making warning noises like it was going to go out, which would have caused a flood in my basement, as it caused in many, many homes in this area. So I went on a quest to find a generator, and I had to go to another county to buy the last one, I think. And I was able to get it hooked up. I'd never worked with a generator before. I did enlist some help, but it was a very empowering experience to get the generator hooked up to my sump pump, just in the event that my basement would have started flooding. And so from a personal perspective, it really hit hard. I mean, the whole day was dedicated to preservation. of my home, of my belongings and everything around the vicinity where I live. The power didn't come back on for 13 hours. And there was a lot of demolition around this area where I live, and it was very, very upsetting. Guest number 10 said there's certainly been a lot of rain in Western Europe as well, very unusual in the more southerly countries. So that's the kind of thing that you start to notice, and the more you work with a calendar, the less you sense that things are coincidental. There's always some kind of a tie-in with what's going on with the energy of the day, what's going on with the energy of the Trecena, or the 13-day cycle, what's going on with the energy of the year, which comes from the Hob calendar, and, of course, what's going on in our epoch, which comes from the long count calendar. So, just a little backdrop on that. I'd like to take a minute now to center ourselves and begin to create actually you can kind of feel that it's already started, the creation of our sacred circle. So if you haven't already, it's a good time to light your candle and sit tall and take a big breath in, sighing out whatever needs to release as we create this sacred circle. And now we ask for the heart of the heavens, the heart of the earth, the heart of the wind, heart of the water, and the heart of the fire to be with us in this moment, in our hearts, in our minds, in our bodies. And we're seeing our first 4 grandparents appear overhead. They're noticing our willingness, sincerity, and gratitude for their guidance. And feeling all of our ancestors come forth. And feeling the spirits of all of the sacred places on our dear planet, in our dear solar system and galaxy and universe show up. And now we're all present together as we create the entryway and thanking Ahau for the Nawal deer or Keh to join us. The Lord and Goddess of the forest, of the natural world, the 4 elements, 4 corners of the universe, the 4 aspects of humanity: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. The 4 colors of our skin: red, black, white, and yellow. The 4 colors of corn. For we are the children of maize, the men and women of maize, of corn. And Keh is that energy that stabilizes, harmonizes, and stands steadfast for truth with a capital T. Gracias, Ahau. Thank you, Mother, Father God, for Kech. Let's just take a moment to feel the presence of Kech emerge in our circle of fire, becoming more and more obvious to us with each beat of our heart. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Kech. And thank you, Ahau, for making two Kech people, two extraordinary Kech people, come forward to be with us today. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our two guest speakers. In Elizabeth Cullen, who is from Evanston, Illinois. She's our guardian for the Mayan altar that's been created there, the fire circle that's been created there. It has a name. The name of the fire circle is 5-Dog, or 5C. And it's right next to the beach of our beautiful Lake Michigan. And that's how I met her a few years ago, and she's been guiding our activities up there ever since. Beautiful woman, the mother of 2 boys, aged 21 and 24, 3 stepchildren and 7 grandchildren, 4 of whom are redheads. She received a degree from Northwestern University in environmental science and runs the Ecology Center in Evanston. And she tells me that after a wake-up call in about 1998 and many years of study, spiritual practice, and teaching at Camp Chesterfield, she will be ordained as a minister of metaphysics next week on May 9th. And this comes just a year before she actually steps into the energy of her elderhood, according to her Mayan Cross. She's also a Reiki master, and she's a number 7, Wukub Keh. Wukub is the Quiche word for 7, Keh. And thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. Hello, and congratulations to you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really an honor to be part of this.
Oh, we're honored to be in your presence, too. I'll take a moment also now to introduce Joseph. Many of you already know Joseph. He's one of our favorite talk show hosts on this channel. And he has many, many talents. He's a technologist, a biomedical engineer, a clinical hypnotist, mind-body expert, yogi, adventurer, and a collective consciousness thought leader. He's the founder of commonpassion.org, and as such, he's been instrumental in orchestrating hundreds of meditations and gatherings, ceremonies, and also other kinds of creative approaches towards the purpose of coalescing consciousness for the benefit of all humanity. And also for years, he's been leading seekers on spiritual journeys to the Maya lands and South America. And that's actually how I met Joseph back in 2007. So, bienvenidos, Joseph. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara. Wonderful to be here with you.
Well, I know a lot of your listeners wanted you to be in this venue at some point. So I'm really tickled to have both of you here. And let's talk now about your Mayan crosses. And I'd like to ask each of you to speak about the circumstances that led you to you're learning about your Mayan cross and what your initial impressions were, and how have you been working with it or not, and what kind of benefits have you been receiving from this awareness. So, Elizabeth, do you want to go first? Ladies first.
Thank you, Barbara.
Women and children first. Could you just talk to us about those beginning stages with you and your Mayan cross?
Well, I first came in contact with you in this group through you coming to the Ecology Center to use the fire circle at the lakefront. And I was just drawn to participate in this and was just, it felt like such a gift to come and see Carlos and Adriana when they were here in 2011. And the ceremony was so powerful. I could not wait to learn more. And everything I learned on the Mayan cross, for me, just rang so true. Even though the things that I had not yet stepped into, I knew I could. And I'm speaking in particular of stepping up and teaching. And I think it's through that, knowing that that's part of my destiny to teach, and with support of friends, in particular my teacher, Reverend Shrogi, I stepped into teaching, although I have to say it was, I have a lot of hesitation, but I'm feeling much more empowered. And I think working with the Mayan energies and doing ceremony has really benefited me greatly and enabled me to do this. So that's where I started with this. In my
so you know your Mayan cross just before your first Mayan fire ceremony, right?
I did look it up because I was very intrigued by the whole idea. But it was the ceremony itself that really, they are so powerful. They're positively transformative, and I knew that I wanted to have that as an integral part of my spiritual practice.
And so you related to Ka or Deer immediately?
Absolutely. There are so many areas in this that just really resonate. The discipline, the being articulate, intelligent, aware, being a protector, and stepping forth and being a teacher. Just really, really resonate with me.
I remember you telling me that you've always been a skeptic.
I do. I have to really fully experience it before I'm convinced. And whereas it resonated with me, it was this fire ceremony that sealed it. I was no longer skeptical. I do question a lot of things. I always have to know. I have to find out. I have to experience it for myself, and it was the fire ceremony for me that really did it.
Yeah. Well, it all works together, right?
It does, and when
it all works together.
When you speak of the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth, and that just brings me right back to those ceremonies, and it's so beautiful. I could just feel the energy flowing through me. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it does transport us into that level of consciousness, that stream of consciousness. So, Joseph, can you expand on that in terms of your own experience? How did you end up learning about your Mayan cross and what you thought initially? How was it influenced or affected you? Your awareness of this, of yourself at this level?
Well, my first exposure to the Mayan calendar was through the dream spell, which I thought at the time was the Mayan calendar of Jose Arguelles, probably back in the 90s, mid-90s or so. Never resonated with me. I tried it. I knew a whole bunch of people that were very into it. And I never did quite get it. The Mayan civilization had always intrigued me, though. And then in the early 00s, I met Carl Kalaman, and he had approached me to help spread these the convergences we were doing based on the Mayan calendar. I was always looking for ways through, it was Affinity at the time, a predecessor of Common Passion, doing these global events. And so it was through Carl Kalaman that I came to know Don Alejandro, Grand Elder of the Maya, Tata Cirillo, and Elizabeth Araujo, Grandmother Elizabeth. Met them in India with Carl. We were filming the meeting of Sri Bhagavan and Don Alejandro back in 2006, 2005, 2006, something like that. And that's when I really got exposed to the tradition, because even after meeting Carl, I was suspicious of his interpretation and others' interpretation of the calendar, because I had fallen for Jose Arguelles' personalization of the calendar and changing of it, actually. But after meeting Tata Cirillo and Elizabeth and getting the straight scoop from them, I got more interested. In fact, that's when I started leading people, small groups down to Guatemala based on my question of Tata back then, which was, how do people learn about the true traditional calendar? And I said, you got to come down here. You got to learn with the elders.
You got to be in the fire.
Yeah, be in the fire. That was my first exposure in India, actually, to that powerful fire ceremony that Elizabeth was just talking about. And we did dual fire ceremonies then.
What you did? So you did a Vedic and a Mayan fire ceremony?
Right.
Wow.
It was the sharing that they did, and of course the elders, they always share their introductions with the fire, in the fire. And so it was that first journey back in 2006 or 2007, I forget when I did the first one with Elizabeth and Tata, that I had my Mayan Cross read by Don Alejandro, and I was struck by the accuracy. And of course, he's very intuitive, very connected with the other realms, and so is Grandmother Elizabeth. And so it wasn't a static reading necessarily. It was the signs that showed up in my cross with the intuitive aspect of his reading. And that got me re-inspired to follow the calendar daily for a couple of years. And I enjoyed it, but had some challenges, especially since soon after that, I got involved in that Shift to the Ages film project. It had been Dying on the Vine, and Tata and Elizabeth asked me to get involved and see if I could help bring the project to fruition. And in the course of that, just got so overburdened with tasks that didn't seem to align with what we should be doing on a particular day in the calendar. And when I asked Tata about it, he said, well, you've got to do what you got to do. Let the elders hold the space for the key energies for the project. So, you and I have had this discussion, which I hope comes up today at some point, about how to follow the calendar in the non-Mayan world, where we don't have as much opportunity to do or not do certain tasks on certain days. Anyway, long story. That's how I came across to do it. And then when we started the revisiting the day sign back in November in honor of the Maya approaching 2012, December 21st, 2012, and it reactivated my interest in it. So I've been kind of casually following it. And of course, your work, Barbara, really makes it easier and more intuitive to follow. So when we get into more discussion later, I'd love to share what we had talked about recently about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I have a question. When you found out that you were for Tech from Tata and Elizabeth, how did that sit with you? I mean, did that
it was very
feel like a fit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It described me and my orientation toward the world in a very succinct and nearly 100% level of accuracy in terms of how I operate in the world and how I see myself in the world as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, both of you and anybody with a Deer Mayan Cross would have the same nawals or same energies in each one of the 5 places of the cross. And the Mayan Cross for Deer has the energy of rainstorm or kawak as conception energy. And this is the energy that's present the day that you were conceived, which is calculated by the Maya 260 days before your actual birth date. And that energy kind of stays with you and influences you up until the time you're a young adult. So the energy of rainstorm, I call it rainstorm because a lot of people call it storm. And that kind of has a freaky stereotype associated with it. And when you hear the Maya in Guatemala talk about kawak, it's a completely different kind of energy than, what we think of immediately when we think of a storm. So, and yet there are elements of that. So, did either of you, or can either of you, speak to something that happened to you in your early life that put you on a path more associated with Deer than it may have been otherwise? And I know that, everybody has something in their childhood that is traumatic. Because you have kawak in that energy, is there something you can share without, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but is there something you can share about something that may have happened that kind of puts you on a spiritual path where it may have not have happened otherwise?
Are you speaking to me or Elizabeth?
Either of you. Yeah, either of you.
Joseph, go first.
I wouldn't say trauma necessarily. I come from a big family, and you have on the younger side, I have 4 siblings, 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and I was not the youngest, but near the youngest. So you get to do a lot of observation with so many people in a household. I always remember not having a spiritual orientation. Maybe the trauma was Catholicism. Having a kind of a deeper, more introspective nature anyway, kind of questioning those early dogmatic tenets that were forced on us, and then seeing my older brothers and sisters react to them and my own reactions probably set me on a course of deeper discovery of the nature of things. I wouldn't have at the time in my early life called it spirituality. It was more quantum physics. It was more exploring the depths through science and technology and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
that's, I guess once I understood the concept of the sign, I could easily trace it back to my earliest awakenings, just consciously as a human being, not necessarily enlightenment or anything, just my earliest awareness.
Well, you had mentioned to me that because you're a 4, so you've got a lot of stability in your energy, that you kind of always knew that?
Yeah. That was obvious in my family, especially as we got older. Pretty much, in a lot of ways, have supported virtually everyone in my family, that big family, including my parents, not just financially, but in other ways. I always felt solid in my self-identity and what I did and how I did it, not necessarily stubborn or righteous, just, I'm kind of introverted, and it was always a comfortable place for me to be on the corner or back in the corner watching things, observing.
So I guess this is how I'm interpreting it as per the cross. I always like to be really emphatic about making sure that when you look at these energies, that you look beyond the stereotype. And this storm energy, especially, early in your life from conception on, could have a negative connotation. And it may not, because Joseph, in this example, is a 4 deer, which is a very stable, secure type of energy. And so the storm energy, or the rainstorm energy, early on in his existence, may not have that kind of effect on him.
If I could add one thing to that you just triggered the memory of, I wouldn't have called it trauma, but when I was very young, I had these what I called recurring nightmares, and I was told, I thought by my mother, which she was so offended when I told her later, that she had told me that if you have recurring nightmares, it means you're going crazy. And, of course, she would never say something like that. And that was in my memory, but it wasn't until my 30s where I did my own self-hypnotic regression back into those recurring nightmares that I realized they were, and this is a venue I could say this safely without feeling judged, that they were abductions that I believe occurred when I was like 3 or 4 years old till I was about 7. I actually have scars on my body as a result of that. It was only through reading a Whitley Strieber book where he was abducted, his family, that I came to realize the connection between this triangular-shaped scars on my leg and the abductions, these supposedly recurring nightmares, which were screened from my memory in terms of what they actually were. But I wouldn't have called that a trauma because I didn't really make that connection until like my late 30s or so.
Yeah, but that kind of blows my theory.
Which is
that's all right. My theories get blown all the time. Auntie Hosh, that happens regularly. How about you, Elizabeth? Do you have any musings on this line of questioning that I'm fine with here?
Traumas, I was born with some physical disabilities and had a lot of anger and resentment and turned to addictive things to cover that up when I was, in my junior high school ages, and left that behind before I was 20. So yeah, definitely, had to go through some work on myself to get through that and be able to move past the anger, the frustration, the resentment. So yeah, definitely.
Coming of age, right?
Coming of age and moving into a better place.
I know when we were talking before, and we were talking about your number 7. Is there any light you want to shed for us on your understanding or experience being a number 7 in your heart sign?
Well, as you explained it, in the stair step, number 7 has no partner and kind of stands alone and can look forward and backward. And I find myself often standing alone. Often, I don't know how to explain it. I crave stability. But I don't know. I'm often alone, and I honestly am often very comfortable being alone. So, for me,
well, when you were saying that, I just picture this. Again, it's kind of like a stereotype, but you picture this deer, usually on their own. Standing tall, regal, alert, wise, commanding in the forest or in the thicket. Does that resonate with you at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yet there's a comfort in other people that see that. I mean, you guys somehow, to me it's uncanny. Every deer I've ever known just makes me feel stable and loved and comforted just by being around them. Your mere presence, just showing up into a room, it's like, whoa. I don't know. Does anybody else have a sense of that with cat? It's just really, really nice to have that energy around. Let me ask this. The energy at your feet and your destiny is the energy of eagle or bird, known as Sikin in the Mayan language. Elizabeth, do you want to speak to how you feel? Because you're not really there yet, right? You're coming up on elderhood.
I'm coming up on elderhood January of next year, but I've been planting seeds and making plans to step into more teaching, more leadership roles. I have been reluctant thus far to do that, although I do know I can. And I've always liked to kind of observe and watch and, kind of just fly low under the radar. And I know now I need to step forth and I need to pass on what I have been blessed to learn, to hold the lantern for those following behind. And I am making my plans to increase my leadership and my teaching.
And how do you relate that to the energy of eagle or Sikin?
Well, I'd always been in the background, and now I need to soar. Now I need to be out there and spread my wings and spread the wings of others.
Mm-hmm. And this energy of Sikine also is the messenger, the carrier of the message between the loftiest spiritual realms and the earth beings. So there's a lot of transformative power that goes along with that. And I mean power in a good, empowering sense.
Absolutely.
So teaching is a beautiful manifestation of that.
It is. It is a wonderful experience, and I will be teaching several classes this year.
Uh-huh.
So it's...
And what kind of classes would those be?
I'm teaching metaphysics of color and writing metaphysical research papers and also numerology.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But in a different tradition, not although there are many similarities with the numeral definitions for the Mayan numerals and more traditional numerology.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Some of them are a little different.
Mm-hmm. And haven't you done some research with sound as well, or is it just color?
I don't know enough about music and sound, although I use it all the time when I'm space clearing and in ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite things to do is to use spoken word, mantra, and also like Tibetan bells and other things to clear. And I love it. I just don't know enough to teach it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Joseph, you are in elderhood, newly found in elderhood. Do you have a way of relating to Sikine as a way to empower what you do as you manifest your life's purpose, your soul's purpose?
Now, on this continuum here, that is related to the future? And it's the conception energy is your youth. The sign that's right in the middle is the one that predominates through your entire lifetime. And then the one that's down at the bottom is your destiny. It influences your work as an elder, your being as an elder. And you become an elder when you're 52, according to the Mayan system. Yeah.
So this is the energy you're starting to work with now.
It seems like energy I've always been working with. But I guess destiny doesn't necessarily need to be fulfilled at a certain age. The idea of 52 in the Mayan conception of these energies is that you've lived all the calendar rounds. Is that
right?
Right.
And you've garnered all this wisdom and experience, and now it's time to apply that somehow.
Yeah, and I've been doing that for a number of years. In my position when I founded the Common Passion Initiative back in 1998 is really when I stepped into it. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. But that intermediary between heaven and earth. In my early years, I approached spirituality more from a scientific standpoint, trying to kind of offset the dogmatic view of religion that I was raised with, to find kind of scientific answers for what people left as in terms of faith But I don't necessarily, I'm 54 now, almost 55. I don't necessarily I haven't witnessed a shift in leadership or anything related to my destiny in the last 4 or 5 years, as in terms of timing of my life's unfolding. It does very much relate to my passion and my personal mission over the last 14, 15 years, though. Right at this moment, I feel like being less of a leader, just because it's that leadership role over the last 14, 15 years has substantially dominated my life. That doesn't mean that's perpetual, what I'm feeling now. Just I think it's more of taking a break from the film project and responsibilities and duties with common passion, and the leadership role I play in many people's lives through my practice, my mind-body practice, helping other people. So it applies, but I don't necessarily see it as a relevant timing element for me. But who knows where I'll go from here once I recover from the shift of the ages.
That may be a process, a long-term process for most of us, I think. Well, the seeking energy, according to the Maya, is really lucky energy in terms of physical or material manifestation also. So, who knows? Maybe you guys will end up very rich materially.
Right. Somehow, when Tata read my cross, he said, I'll be very successful but never rich. Like, fine with me. I didn't really ever have any aspirations to be rich. And I've always considered myself very successful, with some, breaks from being very successful, like when the FDA shut down my business back in the 80s.
One of our friends in Israel, Eagle, is on the chat, and he says, Joseph, Malcolm X was born on 4 Cat, and so was Prince Charles and Bugsy Siegel. So those are people whom you're sharing this energy with.
I love that notion of seeing who else, what kind of other well-known person, other people that are well-known, what their signs are. That's very interesting.
I think, I'm going to have to look this up, but I think Joe Biden is a deer also. No. I don't know what number.
He was born to Imish.
Who's that speaking?
That's Eagle. I have a whole database, so I...
he's Ish. Oh, okay.
No, Imish. 2 Imish. Biden.
Oh, Imash. Okay.
Imash, yeah, sorry. Go on.
Great. Okay, that's one other question. As a Brit, I think the value of Prince Charles is vastly underestimated. He's very active in developing sustainable environments and enabling people. So it's probably underplayed because he's, that kind of activity doesn't necessarily hit the mainstream mentality, right? Okay, let me see. Was there anything else that we wanted to address here? Joseph, you had mentioned something earlier about how to work with the calendar on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Did you want me to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, if I can. I guess I already stated what the challenge I had. So, yeah, if you could address that, that was very helpful for me to hear. What Joseph was referring to is the fact that we live in this Western modern world, and a lot of times what we have to do during the course of a day
may or may not be related to what the Mayas say the purpose of that day is, or it's a good day to do such and such. So how do you integrate those? How do you work with that? And what I shared was the way I approach it. And the way that I work with it is I start every day in meditation. And this is like, typically the only real quiet time I have during the day. And I dedicate that amount of time. And the first thing I do when I light my candle is invite the day's energy to show up for me. And I open to that and say, what have you got for me? I mean, what insight, what guidance, what do I need to be looking at, paying attention to on any level, physical, emotional, whatever. And then just sit with that. And then after a time, usually the end of the meditation period for me, I will use my Mayan mantra. And I repeat it 9 times. And I just notice, again, this is just really developing your ability to witness and to observe the energies. And I can't remember a time when I've used my Maya mantra and not felt an amplification of my energy, my personal field, my biofield, if you will, my spiritual field. And then I go about my day. And I don't really, except for ceremonial purposes when we do our fire ceremonies and things like these Trecena calls, obviously, are set on a particular day. But I don't really feel like I have to try to force anything. But I've already set the stage first thing in the morning, and then throughout the day, different insights and revelations and observations occur to me that day's energy is at play. And I'm able to correlate, I'm able to integrate, and most times I'm able to accept and chuckle and just kind of like, of course that would happen. Today is the Kech day. Or, like I was talking earlier about the flood that happened on my power day and how my power went out. I was better able to go into acceptance mode and with a sense of joy about it, a sense of revelation, rather than contraction, reaction, disempowerment, etc. So that's just my 2 cents in terms of how I go about integrating these two concepts of space and time, and it really makes for a pretty delightful way to go about living. So does that help? Is that
yes,
kind of what you were looking for there?
Of using those as kind of intention drivers for the day, rather than looking at it as, well, I should do this or I shouldn't do this, because, I don't live a particularly casual life. I've got lots going on, and, things have to happen on a certain day, regardless of what the calendar says. But to use it as like an overarching clarifier of energies for the day and how I uniquely apply it is very useful.
And you'll feel yourself much more in flow, much more aligned with the universal forces, and that's really what this is all about. I mean, it's one thing to have day signs and Mayan crosses and work with the energies that are specific to you, but ultimately what the elders would say we're going for is to be able to embody and align with all 260 of these aspects of existence. And that's a fully realized self. That's the sense of fulfillment that you'll have is that any day, regardless of the number, regardless of the deity, is you can be in alignment with.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to need to wrap up now. It's a little bit after 1 minute after the hour. So I'd like to ask if Elizabeth and Joseph, do you have contact information that you'd like to share with the group, or would you like to have people contact me and then me contact you?
For me, probably the latter.
Okay.
Just because I have.
And Elizabeth, would you like?
I only have. I don't have a site or anything. So if somebody's interested and they contact you.
Okay, because I already have somebody who wants to connect with you, so I'll get that with you via email. And my email is mayancross@gmail.com. And then I'd like to mention that our next TeleWebcast is going to happen on May 10th, which is it's a Friday morning, and that is One Sun will be the next Trecena that we'll be working with. And what we're going to do with that call is we're going to talk more about what to do if you feel misaligned with any aspects of your cross, your day sign, or with the Mayan calendar. And then also want to mention, well, Joseph, you may want to mention, you have 2 different journeys coming up in 2013, sacred journeys. Do you want to fill us in on that a little bit?
Sure. Before that, though, this coming Wednesday, May 1st, is Global Love Day. So through Common Passion at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, I'm guiding a global love meditation concordance. So you can find out about that from the Common Passion website, commonpassion.org. And then in the evening of that day is our Transform and Thrive series, hosted by Donald Simon, and Elizabeth Tobin's going to do resonance repatterning on resolving family issues, which is going to be so it's going to be a very powerful day coming up this Wednesday. We got kind of bookends on Love Day, first thing in the morning and then last thing at night with 2 different programs. So it ought to be very powerful. And then
that's a 5-day on the a 5-monkey day on the Mayan calendar. So that should be not only loving, but also very playful.
Playful, that's what I had in mind.
Playful, creative.
Right. Yeah. And then October 3rd through October 17th, Grandmother Elizabeth and I are bringing a group down to Peru and Bolivia. We've got an incredible journey we've done a few times. About 15 days, 14 nights. And you can go to sacredadventures.net to see the full itinerary. We start down in Bolivia, south of La Paz, at a retreat center, sacred waters, just kind of acclimating to the high elevation, and then we go through Lake Titicaca, Island of the Sun and Moon, Tiwanaku, work our way up north through Bolivia, through Peru, visiting sacred sites along the way, the bidimensional gate, all the way up, and we end up in Machu Picchu and Cusco. It's a fantastic journey. So if you go to sacredadventures.net, you can find out information there.
All right.
And then probably we haven't confirmed the dates, but probably January of 2014, we'll take a group down on a sacred journey through Guatemala, Maya lands in Guatemala.
All right, wonderful. So let's just take a moment now to seal up our circle. And based on everything we've talked about with this beautiful, stable, loving, regal energy of Ka, let's set an intention for aligning with that for the next 13 days. And then, true to the Mayan tradition, what we do to amplify our connection to Ka is to do the count. And we count 1 to 13 with this energy increasing in volume, in intensity, and gratitude with each one of the numbers. So I'll start. Everyone is unmuted, and people that are on the chat, we can hear you. You don't have to. We can feel you. You don't have to type in the numbers. So we'll do the count to hearken, petition, show respect, and love for Ka in this moment. So all we do is we go 1 Ka, 2 Ka, 3 Ka, everybody, 4 Ka, 5 Ka, 6 Ka, 7 Ka, 8 Ka, 9 Ka, 10 Ka, 11 Ka, 12 Ka, 13 Ka. Gracias, Ahau. Gracias, Ka. And a big hug and a matiosh to all of you for being here today. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing and exemplifying this beautiful energy that is you. And Joseph, muchas gracias for all that you do and all that you contribute. Blessings to everyone.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to share this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll sign off now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Eagle.
See you in 13 days.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.